The Brown family has dominated reality television headlines for over a decade, but recent revelations have sent shockwaves that fans never saw coming. A new chapter in the sister wives saga is unfolding, and it's darker than anything previously broadcast on TLC. Several Brown children are said to be walking away from the family following decades of unresolved problems, with Kody Brown's behavior being finally exposed. On television, fans saw Kody Brown as the patriarch of the family, a man of power, a father in charge of a complicated household. But off-camera insiders claim the reality was very different. Kody's domineering rule, coupled with claims of manipulation and emotional cruelty, filled the household with tension, fear, and closet resentment. Recent reports reveal that some of his adult children were no longer able to bear his behavior, making shocking decisions that sent shockwaves through the family and fans alike. Insiders claim that the turning point had arrived following months of covert abuse, both emotional and, in some instances, financial. A few of the children asserted they were always shut down when they spoke out against injustices, while others accused Kody of utilizing his status to influence family choices that benefited specific members at the expense of others. Although the show has never centered on wives' drama and home expenditures, these most recent disclosures place a critical spotlight on how his behavior affected his own offspring directly. The consequences are already felt. Social media is on fire with rumor, fan speculation, and speculation. The Brown family has kept mostly in the background, but close to the family were anonymous sources who provided the exclusive look into what fueled these children to make these life-changing choices. They paint a picture of a household in which allegiance was expected, disobedience was reprimanded, and affection was all too often contingent upon certain conditions, shifting the balance of family dynamics to a breaking point. And it is not simply minor squabbles being discussed. Accounts indicate that such departures were followed by emotional clashes, internal messages revealing deep-seated tensions, and a series of startling confessions never previously made public. The insiders say that these exits are the result of years of manipulation, control, and finally, cruelty that have left portions of the family irreparably damaged. Fans are left wondering, how did a family that appeared to be so close knit implode from the inside out? How could Kody, the family's longtime patriarch figure, be the one to drive away his own children? And what does this mean for the remaining family members still under his influence? In this story, we'll break down the events that led to these dramatic exits. We'll look at personal accounts, insider testimonies, and pieces of evidence that paint a clear picture of the emotional turbulence inside the Brown household. We'll examine Kody's leadership style, his decision-making patterns, and the consequences of his actions, culminating in a family rift that may never fully heal. Stay tuned, because this is not just another sister wives scandal. This is a tale of betrayal and manipulation, and the private cost of power against the backgrounds of one of reality television's most analyzed families. In order to fully grasp why a number of Kody Brown's children left, we must take a step back and look at the family's history. The Browns, with their plurality of wives and complicated home life, are always in the spotlight. But under the glamour of reality television is an entanglement of complicated relationships, codes, and conflicts. Kody Brown's path to fame started when he had a dream about a polygamous family that he imagined could live successfully together under his dictatorship. While the public witnessed a highly sanitized image of love, loyalty, and family cohesion, sources inside reveal that juggling 4 wives and more than a dozen children was not easy. Kody's leadership style, they claim, depended on unrelenting control and absolute obedience, too frequently at the cost of personal freedom. Ahead of time, warning signs allegedly emerged in small conflicts over household chores, money issues, and family pecking order. Though these incidents were largely internalized, Kody's authoritarian style ensured that children who complained were often silenced or scolded. Some of the adult children, in retrospect, paint a picture of a childhood filled with unwritten rules, where disagreement was not overtly discouraged, but tacitly suppressed, and feelings were often submerged in order to keep up appearances as a perfect family. These tensions came to a head as the children aged. It is reported that Kody's preference for some children or wives caused splits in the family. The siblings were stuck in the middle of fights that were never supposed to happen, but had long-lasting emotional impacts. For those who questioned Kody's choices about money, living situations, or relationship issues, The message was plain: challenge the patriarch and risk being ostracized or disapproved. From what can be gathered, money management, a much-repeated issue on the show, was also an important factor. Kody's dominance over money, inheritance, and household spending reportedly bred resentment among his older children. Some believed their efforts to the family weren't appreciated, while others complained they were saddled with burdens disproportionately apportioned. Kody's management style has been termed by insiders in interviews as a blend of strategic manipulation and emotional coercion, so much so that children are never quite certain how to establish autonomy without enmity. On top of the financial stresses, emotional cruelty was often an added ingredient. Some reports indicate that Kody used strategies that involved public shaming, emotional withholding, and strict adherence to family rules. This created a dynamic where children felt unheard and unsupported over time. Even minor conflicts could erupt and leave deep scars on those who participated. These dynamics positioned the stage for what numerous insiders call an inevitable reckoning. The blend of control, favoritism, and emotional manipulation produced fissures within the family structure that, by the time the most recent episodes took place, were too great to be overlooked. The kids who did leave did so after years of treading these dangerous waters, feeling that the only way to freedom of emotion was to move away from a father they had once trusted without question. The day that some of the Brown children decided to leave wasn't sudden. It was the culmination of years of building tensions. Sources close to the family confirm episodes that were not only disagreements, but moments that indicated the depths of Kody's cruelty and oppressive rule. One such episode, according to reports, was when Kody publicly scolded one of his older daughters at a family gathering. Witnesses claim the rebuke was out of proportion with the perceived error, teetering on the edge of emotional humiliation. The daughter, long a voice of reason in the family, had exited the room in tears, upset not only by the criticism, but also by the fact that her feelings and point of view did not matter under the regime of Kody Anather. Turning point centered on money. Some of Kody's adult children had started questioning some of the family expenditures, such as extravagant buys and investments that they saw as undermining the stability of the family. When they complained about these issues to Kody, they were rewarded with belittling comments, accusations of ingratitude, and even threats of being barred from making decisions. These financial battles, in some accounts, were more than mere disagreements. They were lessons in submission where defying Kody's authority could pay dearly in terms of personal costs. Emotional cruelty, insiders claim, was the order of the day. A few children reported instances when their accomplishments or personal achievements were belittled or discounted completely. One son, who had toiled long and hard to advance family endeavors, was allegedly overheard by Kody in a put-down regarding his efforts in the presence of younger siblings. These belittling trends contributed to escalating feelings of resentment and isolation. For others among the children, the breaking point was how Kody treated individual relationships within the family. In various reports, he is reported to intrude into friendships, romance, and even the relationship between siblings, supposedly under the pretext of protection of the family, but with the result of dominating all aspects of their lives. When one of the daughters attempted to extricate herself, she said she was subjected to an emotional barrage that made her feel trapped and helpless. The combined effect of these incidents, along with years of sustained pressure, made breaking out of the household no longer an option. It was a must for mental and emotional preservation. A number of children who were once completely committed to the family started secretly making arrangements to leave. They understood that parting would be hard, particularly in a family that was always in the public spotlight. But to many, the freedom of regaining control over their own lives trumped fear of judgment or reaction. The revelation of Kody's cruelty wasn't only on a personal level, it was on a systems level. Ex-family members who had exited started speaking out publicly and presenting narratives that detailed patterns of manipulation, favoritism, and control. Their accounts brought to life the picture of a home in which love was conditional and compliance was required, a picture that outraged audiences and sparked broad dialogue on social media. The exits didn't occur simultaneously. Every child experienced their own breaking point, their own tale of what ultimately drove them to leave the Brown family. What they have in common offers a very intimate portrait of living under Kody's stern thumb. One of the older daughters, who had always served as a peacemaker between her younger siblings and Kody, broke down to say that the constant pressure to please her dad ground her down. In private, she spoke of years of worry about making even small choices, lest Kody disapprove. As a family conflict over money rose to a boiling point, she recognized that her voice, which had previously been valued for its wisdom, was no longer listened to, and the emotional toll of remaining was too much to bear. One of the younger sons spoke of moments when his successes were devalued. Being an award, winner in school, or being exceptional at hobbies meant nothing until Kody validated it. Gradually, this took away his confidence and self-esteem. His departure was not merely a matter of fleeing control, but of regaining a sense of identity that had been repressed for years. One of the middle children related a more explicit confrontation. After speaking openly against a family financial choice, Kody reportedly gave a scathing verbal spanking that left the child embarrassed in front of siblings. The episode was the trigger. Having felt belittled and unheard, the child secretly made arrangements to exist outside of the family, aware the move would be a shock to family and followers. Some of the children who departed also had tales of neglect emotionally. Birthdays, personal milestones, and accomplishments were either disregarded or submerged by Kody's demands and criticisms. This constant disregard for their sense of self was among the reasons to leave. To them, leaving was not rebellion, it was a necessary action to save their mental and emotional health. The bravery it took to leave cannot be adequately stressed. The Brown family has been in the public spotlight for years, and leaving meant not only dealing with Kody but dealing with fans, media, and social networks as well. Some of the children voiced fear of repercussions or misrepresentation, but the desire for individual freedom trumped them. Outside of the family, the exits caused shockwaves among the fanbase. Social media was filled with comments that flooded in, where some viewers showed support while others wondered about the family dynamics that might prompt several children to leave. For insiders, it validated rumors about the dictatorial situation many had speculated about for years. As the news of his children leaving broke, Kody Brown's response was the focal point of conversation among fans and media. In public remarks, he seemed calm, even going so far as to spin the children's departures as a natural part of becoming adults. He stipulated that the Brown family was founded on love, family, and faith, indicating that disagreement and independent choices were inevitable. Insiders, however, tell a different story. Behind closed doors, insiders say Kody was clearly shaken, finding it difficult to reconcile his vision for the family with the harsh truth of having several children walk away. Others report strained dialogue, where Kody purportedly attempted to appeal to the sense of obligation to the family on the part of the children, sometimes using religious or moral arguments to prod them to remain. Public remarks served too little to quell speculation. Interviews and social media entries were quickly parsed by fans, who picked up on undercurrents of defensiveness in his word choice and tone. Analysts on forums began comparing his responses to past controversies, pointing out patterns of controlling behavior that aligned with the experiences described by the children. Meanwhile, the media seized on the story, framing it as a dramatic fallout from years of tension. Headlines highlighted the apparent contradiction between Kody's portrayal of a loving, cohesive family and the reality of multiple children leaving due to emotional strain. This disparity spurred debate on social media, with hashtags concerning family authority, emotional abuse, and the stresses of being under the limelight trending within hours. The private drama within the family was no less powerful. Some of the remaining children felt guilty or confused, caught between loyalty to their siblings and Kody's authority. Sources indicate that this intragroup tension further entangled family dynamics, resulting in additional arguments, miscommunications, and, in other cases, isolation of members. Family dynamics experts also chimed in, pointing out the long-term impact of controlling parenting on the mental well-being of children. They noted that a departure from the household does not always represent rebellion, but instead, a desire for independence and self-preservation. This viewpoint gave insight to the children's decisions and made the audience question the story typically told by Kody on camera. As popularity increased in the public, Kody's reputation had a turning point of scrutiny. With a mix of children departing, media coverage, and social media opinions, There was a combination that elicited reactions from fans and critics as they wondered if the Brown family's image on television equated to reality behind the scenes. With some of the Brown children opting to depart, the dynamics within the family home changed significantly. The rest were subjected to a mixture of feelings, guilt, confusion, and increasing unease. Family insiders report a tense household in which seemingly informal conversation frequently was overshadowed by covert anxiety over Kody's responses and lack of siblings. The younger children were especially mystified by the leaving of older siblings. They didn't know why their brothers and sisters were going, and for many, they took on feelings of blame or inadequacy. Close friends and family members allegedly observed behavioral changes, such as withdrawal, irritability, and increased anxiety. Specialists observe that such emotional distress is typical in families under sudden departures, particularly in addition to an authoritarian parental figure. The wives had effects too. Some of Kody's wives allegedly attempted to mediate, providing comfort to the remaining children and trying to explain without generating more conflict. Some said they were frustrated, acknowledging that Kody's inflexibility and refusal to face the children's complaints head-on were major factors in the crisis. Family habits were also upended. What used to bring the entire family together now seemed inadequate. Meals, trips, and even spontaneous social occasions became colored by the loss of those who had departed. Reportedly, this left a significant emotional void, and it became more difficult for the other children to connect with day-to-day life. Concurrently, the older children who remained started noticing Kody's difficulty in holding on to control. Some reported that there was increased tension between family meetings or whenever decisions regarding finances, education, or home policies were made. Kody's efforts to exert control would result in fights, and even among some of the other children, there was an increasing desire for autonomy, like those of the older siblings who already left home. Therapists who work with family dynamics observed that this stage can be critical. Siblings who stay behind might be caught between obedience to parents and the need to establish their own identity. This has the potential to cause internal conflict and emotional distress, but also presents a chance for personal change and the building of resilience. In the meantime, social media and fans speculated about the psychological effects of the exits, with many worried about the children who were still left in the care of Kody. Discussion forums were full of tips on how to deal with controlling family members, emphasizing that the scenario struck a chord far outside the Brown family. The other family's experience highlights an important point. Even if the children do not actually leave, the emotional impact of separations can strain family unity, undermine parental authority, and compel every member to face painful realities about their relationships. When word of a number of Brown children departing the family broke out, social media exploded. Fans and viewers alike streamed onto websites like Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit to express their views, hypotheses, and indignation. Number Brown family drama, number Kody exposed, and number sister Weve scandal were among the popular hashtags that trended quickly, garnering attention from loyal viewers and casual viewers alike. Website communities analyzed every detail about Kody's conduct that was known, from court files to interviews with former members of the family. Clips of previous episodes of Sister Wives were rewatched, with fans highlighting moments they saw as controlling, belittling, or even cruel. A lot of fans complained that those behaviors were not confronted for decades, alleging the exits were inevitable repercussions of Kody's controlling manner. Influencers and YouTube reviewers capitalized on the tale, releasing reaction movies, timelines, and analytical articles. Some criticized Kody's parenting, others the wives' role, and a few speculated on the children's long-term psychological effects. Comments flooded beneath each video, from sympathetic concern for the children to severe criticisms of Kody for keeping control of a fracturing family. The social media frenzy didn't stop with commentary. Memes and viral posts started going around, jokingly depicting Kody as a strict, controlling parent. Some were in good fun, but others were sharper in their criticism, focusing on the increasing sense of dysfunction in the Brown family that seemed irreparable. Interestingly, the publicity created discussions about polygamy and family dynamics in general. Experts and psychologists made their appearances in panels and interviews, speaking about how controlling parental behavior can have potential effects on the family, the necessity of agency in individuals, and how children would handle it when a family unit is unstable. The Brown family's saga became a vehicle for viewing broader societal issues. Questions arose about the role of media networks, how reality television affects actual families, and whether fame had exacerbated difficulties in the household. Most viewers said they felt invested in the result, cheering for the kids to achieve independence and emotional safety. Even so, Kody's popularity on social media suffered. Videos of his controlling behavior racked up millions of views, and everyone shared posts about his style of leadership. Viewers wondered if this public backlash would affect his choices or compel him to be more honest about his actions. Even with all the online criticism, some devoted followers stood up for Kody, suggesting that the family had always been complicated and fans only got a very edited version of things. This public divide established a dynamic where each new development, a court decision, a statement by a family member, an episode of Sister Wives, was subjected to fiery scrutiny and discussion. The social media storm reflected a new challenge for the Browns, not only having to navigate familial tensions within, but also the constant public scrutiny that now dictated the narrative surrounding Kody's actions and the children's decisions. As the social media storm gained momentum, Kody Brown came under mounting pressure to respond. The public was clamoring for an explanation, and former family sources were speaking out, fueling the fire. Kody's initial response was a measured public statement, shared on social media, and then repeated in interviews with various entertainment publications. In his initial statement, Kody tried to position the exits as individual decisions made by the children, reiterating that family dynamics are complicated and that he respected their choices. But the carefully crafted words did little to dampen criticism. Fans were quick to analyze his wording, missing the lack of accountability or admission of his supposedly cruel behavior. Critics complained that his message was defensive, sounding and lacking in true empathy for the children who had supposedly left. Behind the scenes, Kody attempted to handle the situation more personally. Sources within the family said he made contact with some of the children one, trying to encourage them to come back, or at least come back to reconcile with him. These one-on-one conversations were described as ranging from emotional pleas to efforts to justify his past actions. While a few of the children engaged, most stood firm on their choice to disengage, offering years of neglect, control, and emotional manipulation as their reasons for doing so. In interviews with reality television pundits, Kody portrayed himself as victimized, implying that the stresses of being a reality television patriarch had skewed opinions of his parenting style. He insisted that only a fragment of their family life was picked up by the show and that people jumped to conclusions without the complete picture. All the same, clips from previous episodes emerged on the web, exhibiting events which appeared to uphold the evidence of ruthlessness and stern discipline. Adding to his discredit, Kody tried taking a more calculated step by speaking to the wives separately, mediating family conflicts behind closed doors. But in some instances, this method backfired, as the wives themselves described feeling he was attempting to spin things instead of honestly confronting underlying problems. Christine, Janelle, and Meri appeared more solidified in their criticism, with Robyn's position remaining complicated by being closely aligned with Kody. Public opinion of Kody's damage control efforts continued to remain generally negative. Social media and fan forums perceived his attempts as performative and insufficient. Memes and reaction videos pointed out perceived contradictions between his statements and previous actions, further solidifying the perception that the problems in the family stemmed from systemic issues and not sporadic events. Meanwhile, media platforms started presenting Kody's responses as a turning point of ultimate importance. Headlines also highlighted his defensive stance, with observers implying that his refusal to apologize publicly had only hastened the exit of his children. Analysts drew parallels to other celebrity family scandals and pointed out that public accountability will often be the determining factor in reconciling. The blend of private pleas, public utterances, and constant media attention created a charged atmosphere within the family. The kids' choices weren't only individual decisions, they became public theater, raising the emotional stakes and making it harder for Kody to keep everything under his thumb. Meanwhile, while Kody was flailing to control the story, a number of the Brown kids were getting set to tell their own tale, in contrast to the polished words and diplomatic word choices of Kody. The children's stories were raw, emotional, and intimate. One of the oldest kids, talking anonymously to an insider within the family, painted a picture of a childhood under strict rules, under constant surveillance, and emotionally neglected. It wasn't so much about rules, they claimed. It was about fear. Fear that if we didn't do what was expected of us, we would be shamed, snubbed, or manipulated emotionally. Growing up in such an environment, you begin doubting your own value. Another kid explained about the incessant pressure to look perfect as a family on camera. In their opinion, any fight, disagreement, or moment of unease was intensified with the presence of production teams and the universal expectation of smiling in front of the camera. We were not permitted to experience normal feelings, they told us. Everything had to be dramatic but controlled, as if our pain was just entertainment. A number of the children indicated examples of favoritism, where some siblings were allowed privileges while others were treated cruelly. These habits, they explained, built up over time, creating long-standing resentment and ultimately prompting the choice to leave. The kids highlighted that their exit was not sudden. It was a culmination of being unheard and undervalued for years. Some of the younger kids also spoke about their experiences, though less in depth. They painted the picture of the emotional burden of being constantly watched, the concern of letting Kody down, and the belief that their opinions and emotions were constantly discounted. Even small disagreements could escalate into family-wide conflicts, leaving lasting emotional scars. The children collectively highlighted a recurring theme, the tension between public image and private reality. On screen, the Browns often appeared united, loving, and functional off-camera. The reality was far more complex, with children feeling trapped in a system that prioritized appearances over well-being. Most of them felt relief at finally being able to move away from that kind of pressure, even though it was hard emotionally to leave the family house. Significantly, some of the children explained that leaving was not meant as a criticism of their sisters or mothers. They insisted that the wives were differently involved in family life, and that some were even victims of Kody's dominating conduct. During interviews, the children thanked certain members of their family who supported them emotionally and urged them to focus on their mental well-being. Public release of these views opened extensive online discussion. Fans and commentators were quick to pick up on the difference between Kody's evasive statements and the children's honest testimonies. Social media discussions broke down individual events, making connections between scenes presented on television and the incidents reported by the children. By sharing their accounts, the children not only regained control of their story, but also altered public attention. Focus shifted away from Kody's efforts at damage control and to the lived reality of the young adults, shining a different light on the internal dynamics of the family. As word of the children leaving started to spread, the Brown wives were immediately challenged by how to respond publicly while keeping their private feelings in check. Christine, Janelle, and Meri were among the first to speak out, thoughtfully phrasing statements that were both supportive of their children and quietly critical of Kody's actions. Christine's comment was diplomatic but sharp. She praised the children for trying to make good choices, emphasizing their entitlement to prioritize emotional health. "It is terrible to see our kids wrestle," she stated, "but their happiness and mental health have to come first. I support their decisions and wish that our family can heal one day." Janelle, being the candid one, was more straightforward. In a private family gathering later made public to insiders, she questioned Kody on his manner towards the children. Sources indicate that she accused him of creating an environment that was emotionally unsafe and unfairly punitive, arguing that his behavior had pushed multiple children to the breaking point. Meri's reaction combined empathy with caution. She acknowledged the pain of separation while urging the family to avoid public arguments that could further harm the children. According to interviews with close contacts, Meri attempted to mediate between the departing children and Kody, encouraging open dialogue in hopes of reaching a compromise. Private negotiations behind the scenes reportedly involved intense discussions about living arrangements, financial responsibilities, and ongoing contact with younger siblings. The wives were all in agreement on a single primary issue: that the children departing the household were taken care of and not further manipulated by the efforts of Kody to exercise control. Over the narrative, officials refer to Kody as defensive and recalcitrant through these negotiations. Instead of dealing with the emotional effect of his actions, he tended to interrogate the intentions of the wives and children, terming departures as acts of rebellion or ingratitude. This style, from sources, further escalated family tensions and solidified the fans' sense that Kody cared more about control than kindness. Although outwardly, the wives started speaking about the positive ways they were working to provide for the children. Social media entries and carefully chosen interviews focused on unity without Kody, with the children seen playing hobbies, studying, and taking care of themselves. These attempts were in contrast to Kody's frequently combative and media-centric reactions, which were more centered on legal battles and self-defense, rather than the children's welfare. The difference between behind-the-scenes negotiations and public declarations attracted fan and commentator interest. Observers pointed out that the wives' strategic messaging enabled them to remain credible, empathizing, while quietly holding Kody to account. Meanwhile, Kody's answers were more and more regarded as reactive and detached from the emotional realities that confronted the children. The disparity between public image and private reality grew wider. During negotiations, sources indicate that the wives considered legal means of guaranteeing the children's autonomy, such as formal guardianship negotiations and visitation agreements that would reduce contact with Kody's controlling behaviors. As news of multiple brown children departing the family made headlines, Kody acted fast to reclaim control of the situation. Close sources to the family tell us weekly that he started off with a string of social media announcements, aimed at presenting the situation as short-term and under control. Kody's announcements tended to highlight family togetherness in abstract language, making no mention of the particular issues mentioned by the leaving children. "Family comes first," one of the posts read, with a photo of the entire family at a past event. Critics were quick to highlight the contrast between the celebratory photos and the off-screen drama playing out behind the scenes. Apart from social media, Kody also granted several interviews to lifestyle and reality television magazines. In these appearances, he made an effort to frame the exits as misunderstandings or acts of youthful rebellion. "They love us," he said to one journalist. "And sometimes youth need to discover themselves. We get that and hope that they will return to the family." But sources say Kody's method was very reactive. He spent most of his time watching old footage, social media updates, and communications among family members, hoping to find moments that could be used to justify himself in public. This strategy, however, backfired, as fans and media analysts noted that it often came across as manipulative rather than conciliatory. The wives, meanwhile, remained cautious. They avoided direct engagement with Kody's statements, instead allowing their actions and support for the children to speak. This tension compounded public perception of Kody's defensiveness and the wives' sympathy. In private, sources suggest Kody made personal overtures to some of the children leaving home to persuade them to come back, weaving a mix of emotional appeals and promises of more autonomy. Some kids allegedly pushed back, citing long-standing complaints and emotional depletion from enduring recurrent cycles of turbulence. Fan communities started to scrutinize every interview, video, and post. Social media discourse highlighted the escalating chasm between Kody's public images of family togetherness and the reported realities as stated by the wives and children. Analysts implied that Kody's push for dictating the narrative would further exclude children who were already in doubt about their roles in the home. Legally, Kody's public communications had unforeseen outcomes. Lawyers representing the leaving children were said to utilize Kody's words as proof of an emotionally unsafe environment, bolstering arguments for full guardianship agreements or restricted contact orders. By the week's conclusion, it was evident that Kody's damage control efforts were less than fully successful. While there were some media sources offering his view, the larger narrative now shifted to the children's independence, the wives' support, and the sustained influence of Kody's action on family life. As reports that multiple brown children were exiting the household emerged, an uncommon and historic window into their private lives opened, though long considered to be secretive about their existence. Several children started offering information through social media, exclusive interviews, and statements to close friends. An informant who wished to remain anonymous because of heightened tensions within the family revealed a theme of manipulation and authoritarian rules within the family. "It was never about homework or household chores," the informant said. "It was constant control over what we could say, who we could see, and even what we could feel." Living under Kody's watch felt like walking on eggshells every day. Several children posted carefully worded messages on Instagram and TikTok, hinting at the reasons behind their departures without explicitly naming individuals. Hashtags like #FindingMyVoice and #FamilyFirst sometimes were used to signal their desire for independence and emotional safety. Fans were quick to put together these posts, reading them as verification of long-standing conflicts with Kody. Interviews with some of the children's close friends gave further insight. One friend reported that the leaving kids had talked about leaving the household for months, balancing the emotional cost against commitment to their siblings and wives. "They love portions of the family," the friend explained, "but the home atmosphere became intolerable. It wasn't about rebellion, it was about survival." Other kids took more overt action, sharing videos explaining themselves. In these videos, they shared feelings of not being heard, validated, and pushed to conform to strict standards. "I left in order to take care of my mental health." One kid explained in an emotional statement, "It wasn't simple, but to stay would have been worse." The wives, seeing these posts, offered public support without addressing Kody specifically. Their quantified reactions were a stark contrast to Kody's apologetic messaging, further establishing the children's exits as warranted and justified. Christine and Janelle, specifically, were singled out and lauded for putting the children's welfare ahead of family reputation or allegiance to the patriarch. Fans' social media reactions erupted, with each praising the children for coming forward. Online forums made timelines and threads detailing each child's experience, linking their testimony to previous episodes, family arguments, and public scandals. Observers saw that this citizen journalism magnified the voices of the children far louder than conventional media outlets. Transparency behind the scenes. Legal experts verified that these anecdotal accounts could have serious repercussions. The children's accounts, if presented formally or supported, may provide grounds for independent decisions over their finances, residence, and personal lives. By the close of this stage, the story of the Brown family had radically changed, no longer focused on Kody's public image or his efforts to manage the narrative. Attention turned to the children's lived realities and how systemic problems in the family dynamics and the long-term consequences of Kody's leadership were being brought to the forefront. With word that several Brown children had departed the home, the backlash was swift and unyielding. Social media was filled with commentary, fan theories, and passionate debates regarding Kody's parenting and the internal family dynamics. Hashtags such as #SisterWivesDrama, #BrownFamilyTruth, and #KidsSpeakOut were trending across all platforms, fueling the story far more than the average reality television fanbase. Journalists and entertainment writers jumped on the story almost immediately, casting the scenario as one of emotional neglect and family tension. Headlines focused on Kody's cruelty, the protective nature of the wives, and the bravery of the children who opted out. Comment sections were filled with a mix of sympathy, anger, and speculation as to what this might look like for the future of the Brown family. Twitter and YouTube fans responded in strong numbers, making video compilations out of previous moments on the show that now seemed indicative of Kody's controlling and frequently insensitive nature. They pointed out that the scenes, when framed in the context of the children's exits, presented a bleak image of emotional tension and manipulation in the home. The wives themselves became the center of public debate. Christine, Janelle, and Meri were praised by many for standing up for the children as champions of emotional health in opposition to Kody's dictatorial style. Robyn's position continued to be unclear, continuing the speculation regarding her influence and status within the family structure. Legal commentators on the story noted possible consequences for guardianship, custody, and family law cases. The children's departures could, in certain states, affect court determinations of Kody's suitability as a guardian or sole parent. Lawyers surmised that these exits could also affect monetary disputes, inheritance plans, and publicity rights related to the reality show. In the meantime, Kody came under increasing pressure not only from the audience, but from network executives and producers. In private, sources indicate there were conversations regarding the likelihood of viewership loss, sponsorships, and subsequent seasons of Sister Wives. The network is said to have been worried about bad press and how it affected viewer loyalty. Social media personalities and ex-reality television stars joined in on the debate, likening Kody's case to other high-profile family squabbles in the reality television scene. Numerous others stressed the necessity of respecting the autonomy of the children, urging fans to appreciate the emotional work that goes into juggling a big, intricate family under constant public examination. Together, media attention, judicial analysis, and fan speculation formed a feedback loop, wherein every twist was amplified and analyzed in the moment. Kody's efforts at narrative management looked more and more futile, as the attention moved from his motives to the concrete effects of what he was doing on the children and the family as a whole. On the conclusion of this cycle, it was evident that the Brown family saga had reached a new stage, one characterized by open observation, accountability, and public debate. Fans remained glued to each development, hoping for reconciliations as well as more revelations. With some of the children walking away, the Brown family is left with a bleak future. The exits have created a definite legacy in the household, rearranging relationships, authority structures, and the public image of the family. For Kody, the time is a challenge of introspection, responsibility, and perhaps transformation. While some fans theorize that this could be the end of his control over the older kids, others observe closely to determine if reconciliation is likely. The wives, especially Christine, Janelle, and Meri, seem more solid than ever in supporting the emotional health of their children. Their actions indicate that protecting the autonomy of the children has come first, even if it contradicts traditional family setups shown on the show. Robyn's role is a mystery. While she has played nicer to Kody in the past, sources say the circumstances surrounding the children leaving may make her reevaluate her place in the family and her control over decisions that directly affect the children. Public opinion still buries the narrative of the family. The tale of the Brown children quitting because of Kody's meanness has caused controversies in parenting polygamous families, morality and reality television exposure, and the accountability of parents and networks in keeping children emotionally healthy. Psychologists and family analysts discussing the case lay emphasis on standing by the children, establishing limits, and changing long-term behavioral patterns. In the meantime, the network is torn about what to do. Sister Wives has established its viewership through family drama and intrigue, but the latest developments draw attention to a line between entertainment and genuine emotional cost to the show participants. Executive debates allegedly center around whether the show should go on as usual, rework storylines, or even give the family camera free time to mend. For Kody, this is a turning point. The public has seen a series of events that reflect negatively on his leadership and decision-making. Whether he is able to restore trust, repair relationships with the children, or change to a more empathetic style is yet to be determined. The decisions he makes now will probably determine his legacy, both in the family and in the eyes of the viewing audience. Finally, the Brown family story is a cautionary tale of power control and the emotional toll of leadership in an intricate family structure. It is a testament to the bravery of the children who decided to leave and the strength of the wives trying to shield them. As viewers continue to watch the saga, the most important questions are, will the Brown family heal from these cracks? Will the surviving members discover a harmony that supports love and respect rather than control and hierarchy? And most crucially, what will the viewers learn from a tale where actual lives become mixed in with television drama? Though the last chapter of this chapter in their lives remains to be written, one thing is certain: the Brown family soap opera is in its transformational stage, one characterized not by spectacle, but by actual human consequences, responsibility, and the constant struggle for emotional integrity.